You think you know what brings you joy. That next purchase, that notification, that quick escape at the end of a long day. But what if I told you that most of what you call pleasure is actually a trap? A beautifully decorated cage, designed by a part of yourself you don't even know exists. A century ago, the psychologist Carl Jung uncovered a secret about the human mind, a hidden shadow self. Confronting this shadow is the key to unlocking a level of fulfillment so deep and authentic, it will change your definition of pleasure forever. By the end of this video, you'll have the tools to begin that journey. Now, this isn't about rejecting pleasure. It's about revolutionizing it. It's about understanding that the constant, low-grade dissatisfaction so many of us feel, that sense that no matter what we achieve or buy, there's still an itch we can't scratch. Well, it isn't a sign that we need more. No, it's a sign that we're looking for joy in all the wrong places. We're searching on the surface, in the brightly lit rooms of our consciousness, while the real treasure map is hidden down in the basement, in the dark. The problem is, our modern world, well, it's a buffet of superficial pleasures. It's that endless scroll on social media, giving us microdoses of connection without the risk of being truly vulnerable. Then there are the streaming services, offering a constant escape from our own lives, right? Keeping us from writing our own stories. And it's the consumer culture, promising fulfillment with every new product, only to leave us feeling emptier once the novelty wears off. These aren't just harmless distractions, though. No, they're symptoms of a deep disconnection from our true selves. We can think of them as shadow pleasures. They're activities we use to satisfy a hunger we don't quite understand, a hunger coming from the parts of ourselves we've disowned. What if the boredom you feel at a party isn't about the party, but about a repressed desire for deeper connection? What if the envy you feel scrolling through someone's travel photos isn't a sign of what you lack, but a signpost pointing toward your own unlived adventure? What if your compulsive need to stay busy and chase the next achievement is really a desperate attempt to outrun a part of yourself that feels unworthy of rest? This is the unseen problem. We live in a world that profits from our disconnection, selling us temporary fixes for a spiritual ailment. It offers pleasure as a substitute for fulfillment, and the cost is immense. A life lived at a fraction of its potential, a muted experience of joy, and a constant, nagging feeling of being a stranger in your own skin. The journey we're about to take is the journey home. It's the process of turning on the lights in those forgotten rooms of the mind and discovering that what you were most afraid of was never a monster, but a powerful part of yourself waiting to be reclaimed. This journey is called shadow work. To understand how to revolutionize pleasure, we first need to meet the architect of our inner world. Carl Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist who founded analytical psychology. He actually started as a student of Sigmund Freud, but eventually broke away over a key idea. While Freud focused on the personal unconscious, those repressed memories from our own lives, Jung proposed that there was also a collective unconscious, a shared reservoir of human experience and myth. But for our purposes, his most transformative concept is the structure of our individual psyche, and specifically, the shadow. Imagine your psyche, your total personality, is a vast and ancient house, the room you spend most of your time in. That's the ego. This is your center of consciousness, the I you think you are. It's your name, your job, your conscious beliefs, and the memories you can easily access. The ego is, well, it's the manager of the house, always trying to keep everything orderly and presentable. Now, attached to the front of the house is a beautifully designed porch. This is the persona. The persona is the mask you present to the world, your professional self, your polite company self, your social media self. It's not necessarily fake, but it is a curated version of you, designed for social acceptance. A healthy persona is crucial for getting by, but the problem starts when we mistake the mask for our actual face, when we believe we are that curated, perfect version of ourselves. But every house has a basement, and in the basement of the psyche, well, that's where we find the shadow. The shadow, you see, is the part of our unconscious mind that holds everything we've repressed, denied, or disowned about ourselves. It starts forming in early childhood. As kids, we're whole. We express a full range of emotions: joy, anger, selfishness, creativity, and aggression. But we quickly learn that certain parts of us are, well, unacceptable. Our parents, teachers, and society, they reward us for being polite and agreeable. But they disapprove when we're loud, angry, selfish, or weird. So, what do we do with these unacceptable parts? We do what any kid would do. We lock them away in the basement so we can feel loved and accepted. And thus, the shadow is born. Here's the most critical misconception we have to clear up. The shadow isn't evil. It's not a monster. It's simply what falls outside the light of your conscious mind. Popular culture often paints the shadow as a dark side, full of nothing but destructive impulses. And while it definitely contains primitive emotions like rage, envy, and greed, it's fundamentally neutral. It contains everything that didn't fit with our conscious personality. This includes not just negative traits, but a vast reservoir of positive ones. This is the golden shadow, which we'll get to later. It holds our spontaneity, creativity, vulnerability, and our authentic voice. You know, any part of our true nature we were taught was too much, not practical, or weird. So how does this hidden part of us control our experience of pleasure? It does so in two main ways: through compensation and through fear. First, compensation. When a powerful desire is repressed into the shadow, it doesn't just vanish, it festers in the dark, demanding to be acknowledged. Since the ego won't deal with it directly, the energy of that desire finds an outlet in a substitute, a shadow pleasure. Think about it. Maybe as a child, you had a wild, untamed creativity. You loved to make messes and tell bizarre stories. But you were told to be quiet, to be neat, to be realistic, so you repressed that creative impulse. Now, as an adult, you feel a constant restlessness. You find yourself binge-watching show after show, consuming the creative work of others for hours. It gives you a fleeting sense of satisfaction, but it's followed by emptiness. Why? Because you're feeding the symptom, not the cause. The shadow pleasure of passive consumption is a weak substitute for the real fulfillment your soul craves: active creation. Or take a repressed need for authentic connection. If you were taught that being vulnerable is weak, you might push your need for deep intimacy into the shadow. As an adult, you might find yourself chasing the shallow pleasure of social media validation, the likes, comments, and followers. Each notification is a tiny hit that feels like connection, but it's a ghost. You're snacking on digital crumbs when your shadow is starving for a real feast of human intimacy. The second way the shadow controls us is through fear. The shadow contains our repressed fears, and these fears dictate the boundaries of our lives. For example, if you have a deep, unconscious fear of failure, you'll actively avoid any situation that carries risk. You'll choose safe pleasures. You'll stick to hobbies you're already good at, conversations that stay on the surface, and career paths that are predictable but uninspiring. You might get some pleasure from this comfort, sure, but you're robbed of the profound fulfillment that only comes from facing a challenge and risking failure for something you truly believe in. Your shadow's fear has built a cage of mediocrity around your life, and the pleasures inside, they're just pale imitations of the joy that lies beyond its bars. An unexamined shadow makes you a puppet to your own unconscious needs. You chase pleasures that are just compensations for your disowned parts. And you avoid fulfilling experiences because of your disowned fears. This is why so many of us feel stuck in cycles of self-sabotage. Your conscious mind wants to be happy, but your unconscious shadow is secretly running the show, leading you back to the same empty pleasures and frustrating patterns, time and time again. The path to real pleasure, then, isn't about finding new distractions. It's about turning around, opening the basement door, and beginning the process of integration. This is where the work begins. Confronting the shadow isn't some abstract idea. It's a practical, courageous, and often uncomfortable process of self-examination. It requires radical honesty and self-compassion. The reward is a life of authentic pleasure. While there are many ways to do this, like therapy and dream analysis, one of the most powerful and accessible methods is journaling. We'll focus on 3 steps you can start today. First, you have to become a detective of your own behavior. You need to distinguish between activities that bring you genuine joy and those that are just shadow pleasures. These are the compulsive, numbing habits that soothe an unconscious ache, but they leave you feeling hollow, you know? The key giveaway, it's the aftertaste. Does the activity leave you feeling more energized, more connected, or does it leave you feeling drained, empty, and maybe even a little ashamed? So grab a journal and find a space where you can be totally honest. Remember, this isn't about judging yourself, okay? It's about understanding yourself with curiosity. For the next week, I want you to pay close attention to your habits and reflect on these prompts. First, what activities do you turn to when you feel stressed, anxious, bored, or lonely? Be specific. Is it scrolling Instagram, pouring a glass of wine? Or perhaps some online shopping? And then, after you do this, how do you really feel? Go beyond that initial relief. An hour later, the next morning, do you feel more alive or more depleted? Next, what pleasure-seeking habits in your life feel compulsive or hard to control? What do you do even when a part of you knows it won't actually make you happy? This could be anything from gossiping to eating junk food, you know. What do you do to numb yourself or avoid your own thoughts? This is a huge one. Numbing, it's a primary function of shadow pleasures. And finally, what are you chasing that's linked to a feeling of not enough? For instance, do you chase compliments because you feel inadequate? Or do you chase new purchases because your life feels lacking? As you journal, patterns will start to emerge. You might notice your urge to online shop spikes after a tough day at work, or that your nightly scrolling habit is a direct response to loneliness. These are the threads that lead back to the shadow. You're not, lazy or undisciplined. No! You're a person with unmet needs that are just trying to get your attention. And this awareness, it's the first monumental step. You're no longer just acting out your patterns, you see. You're observing them. And in that observation, you really start to reclaim your power. Actionable. Step 2. Decode your emotional triggers. This is maybe the most potent technique in all of shadow work. Carl Jung famously said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." This is the mechanism of projection. Projection is a defense mechanism where we unconsciously take parts of ourselves we find unacceptable and pin them on other people. It's like having a movie projector in your mind. The film reel is a hidden part of your own character, but instead of seeing it in yourself, you project it onto someone else. They become the screen for your disowned self. The telltale sign of projection is a strong, out-of-proportion emotional reaction, a trigger. It's when someone's behavior pushes your buttons and provokes a response of intense annoyance, rage, or envy that feels bigger than the situation calls for. That emotional charge is the key. It signals that this isn't just about them, it's about you. Here's how to start decoding your triggers. First, notice the trigger. The next time you feel a powerful wave of judgment or irritation towards someone, say a celebrity, a coworker, or a stranger online, just stop. Don't react. Get curious. Second, identify the specific quality. What exactly is it about this person that's provoking you? Is it their arrogance, their laziness, their confidence, their vulnerability? Name the trait as precisely as you can. Now take a deep breath and ask yourself this brutally honest question. Where in my own life do I deny, repress, or fear this exact same quality in myself? This is the moment of integration. Let's walk through some examples. First, consider a trigger. You're irrationally annoyed by a friend who is always talking about their accomplishments. You judge them as arrogant. Now the shadow question. Where do I deny my own need for recognition? Where have I repressed my own pride for fear of being seen as arrogant? Maybe you were taught that being proud of your work is boastful. That arrogant person is living out a part of you that you've locked away. Integrating this doesn't mean you become a braggart. It means you allow yourself to feel healthy pride and to acknowledge your own wins. Here's another example. You feel intense envy towards someone who quit their job to travel the world. You judge them as irresponsible. And the shadow question, where have I repressed my own desire for freedom and adventure? Maybe you've been the responsible one your whole life. That person's freedom is a painful reminder of the adventure you've denied yourself. Integrating this might mean planning a small adventure of your own, or just giving yourself permission to be more spontaneous. That envy is a compass pointing toward your own unlived life. This work is profound. Every person who triggers you is a potential teacher, a mirror reflecting a lost piece of your soul. When you stop wasting energy judging the world, you can start using that energy to become whole. Actionable. Step 3. Embrace the golden shadow. This is the part of the journey that truly revolutionizes pleasure. The shadow isn't just a bag of our bad traits. It also contains our most brilliant and positive qualities, the ones we disowned because they felt like, well, too much. This is the golden shadow. Your submerged creativity, your hidden genius, your repressed joy, your disowned power. But why would we ever repress our own greatness? We fear the responsibility that comes with our power. We fear that if we truly shine, we'll make others envious. We fear failure, and the higher you rise, the harder you can fall. We might have been shamed for it as kids, told, "Don't be a show-off," when we expressed a talent. Or, "Who do you think you are?" when we voiced a big dream. So we learn to play small, to stay safe. Just as your negative reactions point to your dark shadow, your positive projections, your feelings of intense admiration and awe point directly to your golden shadow. The qualities you deeply admire in others are often a reflection of your own dormant potential. Here's how to start reclaiming your gold. First, who do I admire most in the world? Make a list of your heroes, mentors, or idols, And second, what specific qualities in these people do I admire so much? Is it their courage, their creativity, their integrity, or their joyful spirit? Now, rewrite those qualities as "I am" statements. This will feel uncomfortable, maybe even absurd. Your ego will fight it. Do it anyway. If you admire someone's courage, write, "I am courageous." If you admire their creativity, write, "I am creative." Next, ask the golden shadow question. How have I denied this quality in my own life? In what small way could I begin to embody this quality today? For example, suppose you've always been drawn to people who are unapologetically authentic. Now this is a huge clue. It likely points to a truth-teller part of yourself that you've silenced, probably for fear of rejection. Reclaiming this golden shadow doesn't mean becoming abrasive, not at all. It means giving yourself permission to voice an unpopular opinion in a meeting, or telling a loved one how you really feel with kindness. The pleasure that comes from this is unlike any other. It's not the fleeting high of a shadow pleasure. It's the deep, lasting fulfillment that comes from embodying your true self. This is the source of pleasure that can never be taken away, because it comes from within. It is the joy of wholeness. As you start walking this path, a profound shift happens. The very nature of what you desire begins to change. The frantic chase for fleeting pleasures loses its appeal, replaced by a pull towards something deeper, fulfillment. This is the ultimate transformation of shadow work, moving from a life motivated by what the ego lacks, to a life guided by what the true self is. Before shadow work, pleasure is often an escape. It's about numbing pain and distracting yourself from that nagging emptiness. It's the weekend you desperately need to recover from the week you hate, the drink that helps you forget a stressful day. This kind of pleasure operates on a boom and bust cycle. The high is always followed by a crash, leaving you needing another fix. After you begin integrating your shadow, pleasure transforms from an escape into an expression. It's no longer about running from something. It's about moving toward who you are. The joy you feel isn't a bandage on a wound, but the natural radiance of a healed mind. For example, that creative impulse that was once pacified by binge watching, it's now consciously channeled. The pleasure you get is no longer the passive buzz of consumption, but the active fulfillment of creation. You start painting or writing, not to become famous, but because the act itself feels like coming home. This kind of joy doesn't leave you feeling empty. No, it actually fills you up. That need for connection, once sought through the shallow validation of social media, finds its home in authentic relationships. Because you've learned to accept your own unacceptable parts, you're no longer terrified of them in others. This allows for a new depth of intimacy. You can have real, raw conversations. You can show your true self and allow others to do the same, creating bonds built on trust, not performance. The pleasure from one truly authentic conversation vastly outweighs 1,000 superficial likes. This is the core difference. Pleasure is an event. Fulfillment is a state of being. Pleasure is a quick hit the ego consumes, whereas fulfillment, that's the slow, steady burn of your authentic self being expressed. Pleasure is often found by adding something new. A new purchase or a new distraction. Fulfillment, on the other hand, is found by integrating, bringing the fragmented pieces of yourself back together. I remember a time when my main source of pleasure was external validation. I was obsessed with achievement, collecting accolades, just to prove my worth. Each promotion or compliment gave me a rush, but it was fleeting. The hunger for the next thing, though, always returned. I was on a hamster wheel. It was through this work that I discovered a deep-seated part of my shadow, a profound sense of inadequacy I'd carried since childhood. My relentless chase for achievement wasn't an expression of my potential at all. It was instead a desperate attempt to outrun this shadow. But by turning to face it, by acknowledging that feeling of not enoughness with compassion, its power over me began to fade. The compulsive need for validation lessened. The pleasure I get from my work now, it's just not the frantic high of the past. It's a quiet, profound sense of purpose. The fulfillment, of knowing I'm living in line with my own values, not in service of a wound. That is the promise of this path. It's not about eliminating pleasure. No, it's about upgrading it from a cheap substitute into something real. It's about discovering the joy that doesn't require constant seeking, because it was inside you all along. We've traveled deep into the psyche today, from the polished persona to the treasure-filled basement of the shadow. The core message is this: that deeper, more authentic form of pleasure, the kind we call fulfillment, isn't found by adding more to our lives. No, instead, it's by integrating what we've hidden. It's about having the courage to turn and face the dark, because in that darkness we find not a monster, but our power, our creativity, and our capacity for true, unshakable joy. This journey isn't easy. It asks for your courage. But it's the most rewarding journey you can take. Your transformation starts with a single step. Don't let this just be an interesting video you watched. Let it be the beginning of a new relationship with yourself. Start with just one journal prompt from this video, maybe the one that scared you the most. That's where the gold is hidden. To help you on this path, I've created a free PDF, 5 journal prompts to uncover your authentic pleasures. It's designed to take you even deeper into this process. You can find the link in the description below. Be patient and compassionate with yourself. The joy you've been searching for isn't out there in the next purchase or the next escape. It's in the parts of you waiting to be welcomed home.